Hi, I'm Joe Roth. At New Jersey Sharing Network, we're committed to saving and enhancing people's lives through organ and tissue donation and informing people about our life-saving mission. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Russell Berry Foundation, Cohn Resnick, providing accounting, tax, and advisory services for more than 90 years, the Fidelco Group, Fedway Associates, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, Kessler Foundation, changing the lives of people with disabilities, and by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, founded by the Jewish community. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by Commerce Magazine.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. I want to introduce you to Dr. John Brennan, who is the 2014 St. Patrick's Day Parade Grand Marshal in Newark. This is the 79th annual St. Patrick's Day Parade in Newark. It's being held on March 14th. This is a big deal.
It's a great deal. It began in 1916 with Mayor Giblin, and with a couple years off during World War II, it's really progressed to now a major event in Newark and a lot of fun. As you know, Newark's got such diversity, and this Irish diversity is a very important part of its history.
And you have to be Irish to be the Grand Marshal.
You have to be Irish to be the Grand Marshal.
Dr. Brennan, by the way, Dr. Brennan, for those of you who do not know, is the president and CEO of Newark Beth Israel Medical Center. Prove your ethnic, background, your Irish background. Go ahead. Where's your family from?
Well, my mother's from, last name Grogan, from the area of Dublin, and my father from Kilkenny, last name Brennan. My great-grandparents came over. One set ended up in Canada and moved their way down to Syracuse, New York. The other set came in through Manhattan and moved their way up to Syracuse. But it's a great story because my father's father was a farmer and then was on one of the belts for Chrysler putting cars together. And my mother's father was a lawyer. So we got this spectrum of family that goes quite a distance and very hardworking, both sides.
It's interesting. For folks who don't appreciate or understand, I know we're showing footage throughout this segment of the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We were there last year in Newark. Patrick Dunnigan over at the Gibbons Law Firm was the Grand Marshal last year. We were out there filming it. It is very exciting, and the crowd is very enthusiastic. And I know a lot of your colleagues from the Barnabas Health are going to be there as well. What do you think it means to your colleagues to have their colleague be the Grand Marshal?
I think it's great. It is a lot of fun. But we do bring money into 4 charities, well, several charities, but 4 important charities. One is all familiar with you, St. Benedict's.
St. Benedict's Prep, right?
Great organization. Newark Library, another great organization. And then the Matthew J. Moorhan concussion and heart screening program.
At St. Barnabas?
At St. Barnabas, throughout the system. And then our Burn Foundation, which is very important to a lot of the folks, a lot of Irish heritage in the fire department and the police department. And unfortunately, some of these firemen end up in that burn center. So very important to us.
So let me ask you, in terms of keeping traditions alive, in fact, the theme of this whole parade is, in fact, keeping the tradition alive. And you'll be there with your wife, Mary Beth, and your children. Question, in terms of traditions, when growing up in Newark, as you know, the Columbus Day Parade that went up Bloomfield Avenue, for people who watch the show who grew up in that area, you know, the Columbus Day Parade was such a big deal. Went throughout Bloomfield Avenue. It started up on Broad Street downtown and went up into Belleville and up into Bloomfield, but all the way through Newark. It doesn't exist anymore. But the idea that the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Newark is still there is a big deal, isn't it?
Oh, it's a tradition. You know, what an honor. My wife and I were sitting at Rod's having dinner.
Which is talk about a landmark downtown Newark.
Right, and so the phone rings, and I answered it. My wife wasn't happy with that. And it was Assemblyman Giblin.
Tom Giblin.
Tom Giblin, and he said, you know, we vetted you, and we want you, would you
By the way, we should
consider?
let folks know that Tom Giblin is the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I mean, he lives it every day.
Every day, and he, quite an organization. We went to one of his fundraisers a couple of nights ago, and it's just amazing. Talk about tradition and really looking to help the small foundations. That's what his organization was doing.
So the call comes in and says?
And so we're just about to drink my glass of wine, and the call comes in and asks me, and I was like unbelievably thrilled, because it really does, as you were saying before, tie these generations together. My parents, very strong Irish heritage. My kids, very strong Irish heritage. Brings that whole family together. It's just great.
It's so interesting. For a lot of your children, how old are your children?
Almost 30. I got a daughter, Kelly. April 5th will be 30, 26 and 16.
So the question becomes, for children of that generation and even younger kids, do you think it's harder for them to appreciate the value of ethnic traditions and what it means to some of us and our parents?
I think it does, and I think this is something that brings it back. But it's not just the parade, it's all the events that occur around the parade, and really digging into the history and understanding the roots from where you came. And my children are much more appreciating of that now that I'm involved in this, and it became more of a spotlight for them.
What'd you say to them?
I said I'm going to be in the Irish parade, and because
you're not going to be in the parade, you're the Grand Marshal.
Well, I had to be careful how I started it off. I wanted to start it off and kind of build it up, and I really wanted them to understand what it was about. It was about celebrating that heritage. It wasn't about just the parade. It was this celebration of Irish heritage, which is going to happen that entire week prior to the parade.
Just so folks can appreciate this, whether they're Irish or not, what does, you talk about the Irish heritage a lot, what does being Irish, I mean, I often think about what being Italian American means to me, particularly coming from a neighborhood in Newark where I grew up, I hate to say this, but I know you've heard this before, there was one Irish kid. You've heard this before, right? And in a lot of Italian neighborhoods, there was always always one Irish kid, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. It was just, they were mostly Italian neighborhoods, and maybe there was, an Irish neighborhood, there was one Italian kid or whatever. Right. But in Newark, it always struck me that was so much a part of my life, and grandparents, et cetera, and that meant so much to me. What does being Irish mean to you?
Being Irish means, it means a lot of things, but one thing that is real clear for my family, it's hardworking. They came from my father being, a farmer in Canada and making his way down here, really trying to make a life, and my other grandfather becoming a lawyer. Hardworking, nothing was given to them. And I think we share that. I think whether Italian, Jewish, Irish, I think that heritage, and that's what we want to give to our kids. This is hard work that you do to accomplish.
That's a lot of what Newark Beth is about.
Exactly. A lot of diversity at Newark Beth.
I want to remind folks, it is on March 14th, the 79th annual Newark St. Patrick's Day Parade, and our good friend Dr. John Brennan from Newark Beth is the Grand Marshal, and it's going to be a great day. And congratulations, Mr. Grand Marshal.
Great. Can I just thank Michael Byrne? Michael Byrne is the gentleman that's really putting the operations into this and has done an amazing job.
And once again, all the money goes to 4 wonderful charities. Thank you, John.
Great. Steve, thank you.
You got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Robert A. Marino is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield in New Jersey, and Chairman of the Horizon Foundation of New Jersey. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you, Steve. Good to be here.
10th anniversary of the foundation.
Yes.
Let's give a few numbers out. $34 million in grants over the 10 years. 965 grants, primarily in the area of health care, nonprofits, funding healthcare nonprofits, and also arts and culture. Talk about the foundation and why it's so important.
Well, the foundation, we created it 10 years ago. Actually, it was created under my predecessor and former CEO, Bill Marino, under his leadership. And in the 10 years that we've been in existence, as you've noted, we've granted over 965 grants, totaling over $35 million. The reason why we created the foundation is we wanted better strategic alignment of the company's charitable giving, and we thought that through the creation of the foundation, we can be more focused, more deliberate in our charitable giving.
But you know, the other part of that's so interesting is that there's a Newark connection. And what's so fascinating, for those of us who are born and raised in Newark and are very much committed to the city, an interesting fact is that Horizon started in Newark in 1932?
That is correct, 1932.
So they start there, and the commitment is, to a large extent, to Newark.
Absolutely.
And Newark nonprofits like NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, and the museum. Talk a little bit about that. The Newark
Absolutely.
connection.
Well, as you said, the company was founded 82 years ago, back in 1932. Newark has been our home. It's been our headquarters. We feel a very special commitment to the city of Newark because that is where our business was founded. I have to tell you on a personal level, my family's from Newark. I was born in Newark. I was educated at Rutgers Newark, so I find a special commitment to Newark as well.
What does that mean to you, Bob?
It means giving back. It really does. It means giving back to the city where the company was founded, where the company grew up and thrived. And for me personally, it's to give back to the city that I was born in, the city that my family is from.
What do you see for the city? Because you know Newark so well, and because you know, there's a lot of activity downtown, and we actually, for those who know our series very well at the Caucus Educational Corporation, you know that we partner with NJPAC and do a lot of programming from there as well. What do you see for the future of the city?
Well, I continue to be optimistic about the future of the city. I think the development that has gone on, I think the NJPAC, founded 12 years ago, became a great anchor for the city to become back into its cultural presence, if you will. I think the Prudential Center has added another tremendous venue for Newark. You know, Newark's proximity to New York City, Newark's proximity to transportation. It's an educational center, as you well know, given a number of universities that are based there.
Horizon Plaza.
Horizon Plaza, we're particularly proud of that, as you know.
What does that mean? Tell folks who may not know what that's really all about.
Sure. The Horizon Plaza is literally the front part of the Newark Museum. It was named in honor of the Horizon Foundation in recognition of the foundation's contribution and support of the Newark Museum. We're particularly proud to have our name associated with the Horizon Plaza there. And if you haven't seen it, it's actually the first public green space that's been developed in downtown Newark in the last 40 years. So
first public green space?
Yes, first public green space in downtown Newark. It's a park-like setting. It presents a very welcoming entrance to the Newark Museum, and it certainly is a very nice community space for the visitors of the museum and the residents in the area.
It's interesting, Bob talks about a lot of arts and culture initiatives like the museum, like the Performing Arts Center in Newark, NJPAC. But the other piece of it, really, I guess it's 80% of the funding from the foundation, the Horizon Foundation, goes to not-for-profit organizations committed to providing quality health care, right?
Correct.
Healthy You is a part of that. Describe what Healthy You is, because I understand it really has to do with fighting childhood obesity?
Yes. Healthy You is one of the signature programs of the Horizon Foundation. It's a program that we're particularly proud of. It's a program that we run in collaboration with the statewide YMCA statewide alliance. The program is focused on childhood obesity, prevention of childhood obesity. And as you well know, childhood obesity is a national problem. It's also a problem here in New Jersey as well. And through the Healthy You, the focus are kids aged 3 to 13, preschool, elementary school. The program is offered in sites throughout the state, YMCA sites, as well as 50 pilot school sites. And it really teaches the importance of physical activity, good nutritional choices, and importantly, it involves the parents because it has to extend beyond the school into the home life as well. It's a signature program. We've been involved with it for 7 years. We've granted over $5 million to this program.
40,000 young people.
40,000 young kids will be touched by this program.
Why is that Horizon's responsibility?
Well, you know, we feel we have a responsibility to improve the health and well-being of not only our members, but the citizens of the state. After all, we are a health insurance company. We are focused on wellness. We are focused on disease prevention and health education, and this fits very nicely with what is the mission of the foundation.
You know, the other piece of this, other than the healthcare initiatives and the arts and culture initiative, an initiative that you'd rather not be supportive of because you'd rather not be a problem, it really has to do with Hurricane Sandy, you know?
Yes.
No one would want to be a part of it, but it's the reality. $1 million dedicated from the foundation to Hurricane Sandy relief. Talk about it.
Well, we have 5,000 employees, and literally almost every one of our employees was touched either directly or indirectly by Hurricane Sandy. Obviously one of the most devastating natural events that's happened in the history of the state for quite some time. So we felt a very special obligation, being a New Jersey-based company, having our employees and their families impacted by this, that it was an appropriate thing for us to do, a responsible thing for us to do, was to commit $1 million through the Horizon Foundation to Hurricane Sandy relief efforts. And the organizations that we supported through that $1 million grant included the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, Community Food Bank, and the Sandy Relief Fund as well. Additionally, our own employees at last year's company Employee Volunteer Day, we had 250 employees and their families show up at Island State Beach to help clean up the beach as a result of the devastation that the hurricane caused there. So we felt it really was a commitment on our part, an appropriate thing to do, the right thing to do to give that kind of support.
Last question. As the 10th anniversary, as you recognize the 10th anniversary of the foundation, and for those who know, those of us in public broadcasting, full disclosure, you know, Horizon has been very good to public broadcasting for a long time. The future of the foundation, what do you see?
Well, I see a bright future, Steve. I hope the organization, the foundation, continues to evolve, continues to thrive. I hope that we're able to expand our grant giving, and more importantly, I really hope that we're able to continue the mission of this foundation, which is to truly improve the lives, the well-being, and the general community at large. We feel very strongly about that. We feel as a corporate citizen here in New Jersey, it truly is our responsibility to help in that regard.
Well, a lot of folks continue to benefit, particularly those who need it the most in the areas of healthcare, arts and culture, and those continuing to suffer from the devastating effect of Hurricane Sandy. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Got it. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
It is my honor to introduce a distinguished academic who came to us from the University of Nebraska. He's here at NJIT now. He is Dr. Namas Chandra, and he's director of the Center for Injury, Biomechanics and Materials and Medicine at NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Good to see you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Steve.
You know, we were talking right before we got on the air that your center is focused on doing research in the area of traumatic brain injuries. All right? Let's put some things in perspective. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, report that there are 1.7 million traumatic brain injuries recorded annually. And you just told me before we got on the air, 3.7 million concussions every year in the U.S.
Right.
What are you researching?
We want to understand exactly how the brain injuries are caused, whether we can protect them, how to diagnose them if not protected, and come up with better medicines to treat them, and look at the diagnostics value of the therapeutics as it goes along.
Doctor, how complex? I know this is a simple question to an incredibly complex issue. How complex is the brain?
It is very complex. Brain is what we are, Steve. We are our brain. An injury to the brain just changes our personality and who we are. So,
well, back up. An injury to the brain changes who we are?
Correct.
Make the case.
Brain is basically our CPU, computer that operates every other part of our body. If there's an injury, it may impair our hearing abilities, walking abilities, and thinking abilities. All our abilities are embedded in the brain. An injury to that, either in the serious or moderate form, still affects us, just not us, the people around us, the society in general.
So, right before we got in the air, I asked you, what is the difference between a brain injury, you have a brain injury, and a traumatic brain injury? Is this a question of semantics?
Yes and no, Steve. Trauma is any external injury that, external mechanical load that causes injury. A football concussions, a fall or involved in automotive accidents, or for example, a soldier who is trying to protect us involved in a blast, all of them are external traumas. The injury that is caused by trauma is traumatic brain injury. The injuries can also be caused by neurodegenerative diseases as they grow older, or other conditions like epilepsy, Alzheimer, and others. So traumatic brain injury is an injury that is preventable.
It's preventable.
Absolutely.
Help us understand that. How is it preventable?
Trauma is an event that happens and injures our brain. For example, if you're going in a car and get involved in an accident, what are the ways in which you can at least mitigate the effect of those particular injury is what I mean by protection part. You are going in an automobile or motorcycles, whether you are wearing a helmet or not is something that is mitigatable or preventable. You are playing football, if it is whether you are wearing the right type of helmet, right type of rules and regulations, that at least is not preventable, at least mitigatable. So the question really is we can...
Okay, mitigatable meaning reducing the severity of the injury?
Yes.
So, but the research that you're doing at NJIT, is it about trying to understand how to treat traumatic brain injuries, or is it preventing, or both?
We first basically, like any universities, we are basically trying to understand the actual mechanism of injury. Suppose I go in an automobile and get involved by sudden braking or external car coming and hitting us. What causes this? How this is caused, both at the level of external surface and that level of surface of the brain itself, for example.
Why do we need to know that?
That then tells you the connection between what the injury is and the medical outcome. If somebody is not able to walk, talk, think properly, or hearing properly, is there a connection between what the injury was and the event that caused those injuries? Now then we can go back to the question of preventing them by properly addressing what really originally caused those injuries.
Describe your team. Who's there?
In our team, we have medical scientists, physical scientists, and engineers. We work very closely with medical school. That's one of the reasons I actually came from Nebraska to here, and Rutgers Medical School. We also work with Kessler Rehabilitation Foundations, where they are involved in trying to treat patients and recuperate the patients at least to a reasonable level after the injuries.
The Kessler Rehabilitation Foundation, we're partners with them as well. It's fascinating. So when you work with Kessler, you take the research findings and share it with Kessler for what purpose?
To have a better treatment. A relationship between what they treat and how the treatment helps in a faster, better, and a more efficient way to reset the brain back to the reasonable levels of the before the injury event.
I'm curious about something, Doctor. When did you know, and what triggered your fascination with the brain?
Well, I have a personal story. My one brother was involved in an accident long back, 20, 30 years back. It did not just affect him, it affected him, his parents, which are my parents, and myself. It is very, very personal to people. When they get involved in TBI, and it is true with respect to individuals, soldiers, and others, it just affects them irreversibly, and them the families. And I think if there is an opportunities that the time is now, because we have an ability to understand things that we could not because of our advances in engineering, advances in medicine, advances in imaging, and advances in other computational tools.
So as complex as the brain is, and difficult as it is to understand, you are saying there is more reason to be hopeful and optimistic because of the technology and the advances today more than ever before.
Absolutely. And our hope is well placed.
Well, we appreciate you and your colleagues at NJIT and all the work you're doing every day on behalf of those who are struggling with TBI, traumatic brain injuries, and those who are family members and those who care for them every day. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Russell Berry Foundation, Cone Resnick, the Fidelco Group, Fedway Associates, New Jersey Sharing Network, Kessler Foundation, and by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, founded by the Jewish community. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.